All right, so how deep in did you lose me?
I don't think we got who some of your influences were. Who was shaping Andre in his early years to be the artist that he is today.
Okay, I was saying, I used to watch a lot of Saturday morning cartoons and animation. Bill Cosby, Fat Albert, and the Cosby Kids, that kind of flow. Um, and that intrigued me. The whole black characters, uh, animated black characters, stood out, of course. And I would also say when Good Times, the TV show, came out in '75. Didn't know at the time who the hell he was. Didn't know at the time that he was a brother. But the artwork that they used to use for Jimmy Walker, I was intrigued by the length and the long ways that he stretched out. I was intrigued by the Black Moses, the Black Jesus episode. Later on, finding out it was Ernie Barnes. Once again, like I mentioned, Parliament Funkadelic and their album covers. And then that's also when my older brother once again had comic books, but he would list, he would like, it was in the Green Lantern and uh, what is it, the Hawk, and of course Batman and Spider-Man. But I don't know how, when, where I discovered Black Panther, Luke Cage, the Falcon, and didn't know at the time that the artwork of Black Panther at the time was by a brother named Billy Graham. Not the
Mm.
preacher, not the wrestler, but a brother. And those kind of things intrigued me. And once I got old and started realizing, there's people that look like me who could do this, it just made my love of art and drawing even deeper than it really was.
What was some of the earlier things that you were drawing, and what did that transition to?
Uh, Earlier things that I was drawing was just kind of like repeating what I saw. So if I had like a Mad magazine and they drew something that had some kind of superheroes in it, then I was drawing that. If it was Black Panther, Captain America, I was doing that. Captain America at the time and still is my favorite character. The reason being, when I was reading the comic books, he was from Brooklyn. He was an artist, and he carried his shield in his portfolio. And then that kind of just led me to the fact that he also hung out with the Falcon, a brother. And then the Falcon, then the Falcon led me to Luke Cage, and then that led me to the Black Panther. So Captain America, the comic book, was the blueprint that led me to the brothers and the melanin AIDS superhero. So um, let me turn this ring off too. But yeah, that was comic books. I was always repeating those. Whatever I saw in Mad magazine that intrigued me, I would try and draw those. And it always was although they weren't a lot, it was always whatever black character I saw in a Mad magazine. I remember there was like a page advertising subscriptions for Mad magazine, and they had like a drawing of Julius Irving, just his leg kicked over, and I drew that. Anything, I mean, not knowing, I guess maybe now that I think about it live, maybe subliminally, all the shit that I was going through with junior high and white folks trying to beat me down, I would just draw anything melanin kissed. I would just draw anything where it showed, represented me, probably. And I don't really think I thought about it back then. I mean, I had parents who uh, had me watching Channel 13 and watching young black men and sisters being sprayed with water hoses just to know what's going on, and having to keep my head up even when I went to white schools where I was called nigger. I just, anything where it showed me and people who look like me in a positive light, I was probably drawn to. Pun intended.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned art school earlier on. At what point did you go to art school, or were you always in art school?
It wasn't until I mean, we had art in elementary school and
Right.
all that. Had art in junior high school, but it wasn't until I went to a actual high school art and design that we had 8 periods like everything else. We had math, we had science, but we had probably like 4, 5 periods out of the day of art, you know, whether it was photography, sculpting, illustration, cartooning. It was an art school. We actually even had an art regents. So it was some real uh, learning from experienced teachers, teaching you the business. I remember in junior high school, it was all about owning and keeping your originals. They taught us back then that mentality. So, I mean, it couldn't have been a better place. And going from a junior high school where I had to watch my back with white folks to going to a high school where we had Hispanics from the Bronx, white folks from Brooklyn, and everybody, you know, yeah, I don't want to make it feel like straight up kumbaya, but it was some kumbaya shit. There was no beefs. And sadly, I've got white friends still from high school, you know, because everybody it was just a real cool environment in the middle of Manhattan in the early 80s.
What was the biggest takeaway that you took from art school?
Um, do what you love. You know what I mean? I got bills to pay, but I'm still gonna draw whether I'm getting paid or not. It just kind of helps things that I can actually get some money and make a living, either drawing, teaching, whatever I gotta do. Be passionate about what you do, but also be supremely business minded. Make sure your shit is taken care of. It kind of worked out for me because I can get paid now from shit that I did 20 years ago if I let somebody use it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
I can be really picky and choosy when I got people reaching out for me about commissions. If it's not something I'm not excited about, I don't have to do it. If it's not showing my people in a positive light, then you definitely came to the wrong person. So all of those for me uh, stem from where I grew up, how I grew up, mother and father, brothers and sisters, but also the schools and the people who are around me that I went with you know, with around.
right.
Yeah.
Upon graduation from art school, what was the plan moving forward in Andre Leroy Davis's life?
Well, I grew up in a West Indian household, so the plan was not necessarily my own. The plan for them was I was going to college, so that's exactly what I did. Followed the footsteps where my brother went. My brother went to, like I said, music and art. I wanted to go into art and design. He went to the School of Visual Arts College. I made it into Parsons. I mean Pratt in Brooklyn. I think Parsons was in the city. I tried Cooper Union. Was close to getting a scholarship at the School of Visual Arts, aka SVA, and wound up going to SVA in 1984. Earned my bachelor's there. When I went to SVA, I think Clay was at the school from Kid and Play. He wasn't there long, and I bought my let's put it this way: the kumbaya moments that I had in high school, it was definitely a change again, going back to a mostly private college where it was mostly white folks in deep parts of New Jersey that I never heard of. Of course, I knew of Newark, I knew of all that kind of, but I never knew about Mount Olive and all that kind of shit. So it was definitely a change that I was ready for because I had that kind of experience. But a lot of those kids weren't necessarily ready for me and a few of my friends who went from the high school to the college.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, at what point did you start finding placements for your work before the source?
Well, it was once I graduated in '87. I knew it was going to be a tough road. Uh, I didn't realize how tough until I actually started to live and experience it. The main thing is you have to get your portfolio together, and it's a double-edged sword. They want you to have a portfolio with tear sheets, meaning printed work that you have done. It's kind of like your resume, but it's printed work. But you can't get printed work if you're not hired to do any work. So it was like You know, I had to do some freebies. I had to do some political stuff. I remember joining Mayor Koch and Jesse Jackson, just to try and get my work seen. And then they had something called a portfolio drop-off policy. And that was, you had to go to a newsstand, right? Look through the newsstand, find out where the addresses of certain magazines were, write down the phone number, find out who the art director was. This without somebody who owns the store telling you to get out the store because you ain't buying nothing. So
Right.
you had to learn through the quick, the quick tip, which places you could go. You call up the magazine, you ask them, do you have a portfolio policy? One place might say, yeah, it's Mondays. You got to drop it off by 10 a.m. You have to pick it up the next day, or you have to pick it up after 12. You find another place, and their drop off might be on a Tuesday. So what I wound up doing is I got two portfolios together. I put like 6 black folks and 6 white folks in the portfolio because I'm an equal opportunity employer. And I would hit like one place and then hit the other, pick up my portfolio, drop it off. And then I remember dropping it off. I can't remember the magazine. And the art director wanted to speak to me, right? So I was like, yo, it's going to be my first job. There's a middle-aged white woman comes out and says to me, can you draw white people? And I'm thinking to myself, I actually looked at my portfolio. There's, 6 black people, 6 white people. She's like, because, you had so many people of color. And I'm like, well, the smart ass in me just came out. I'm like, yeah, but there's like 6 white folks in there. So I knew how this world of art was going to be. And I just maneuvered my portfolio. I didn't take mine out. I just like white, black. That's how I arranged the portfolio. Didn't get any jobs from her, but I just kept on. And my actual first freelance work that paid some money did not come from me running around in New York. It was a magazine that old school folks will know called Players Magazine, which was just sisters. And it was out in California. And the publisher at the time was H.L. Sorrell. I actually remember his name. And he reached out to me to do an illustration of Spike Lee for the, like how Playboy has the nude women, but it also had articles. Well, Players was the same way. They would have an interview or two with someone. So I did a drawing of Spike Lee, mailed it out, had it in my contract that the artwork had to be returned in 90 days. My check had to be in, I think it was 60 days. Yeah, all this was the contract stuff from high school and college. So I wrote that in there. Had it in there that they would own first American Northern rights for a year, right? But then all those rights were returned back to me after a year, plus ownership of my artwork. So that was cool. And then he reached out to me the next month, and I did a drawing of Leon Isaac Kennedy. And then he reached out to me for the next month, and I did a drawing of the lead singer of the Bus Boys. And then he reached out to me the next month, and I did Vanity. And those were my first full color paying jobs. I got a little cocky, thought it was going to be easy like that. And then it was like a mad dip in between real paying things. But then stuff started happening because I kept grinding, got more jobs in New York, Discover Magazine, Playgirl, started doing a monthly drawing of a celebrity in Playgirl. Then High Society, the porn magazines was just sweeping me up to just draw celebrities.
Right.
And then I did Discover. I did a black magazine called Emerge, which was like a political magazine that came out. So I was doing pretty good. And then 1990 came along. And as I normally, hit the newsstands to see what new magazines were out, came across the Source magazine.
Do you remember who was on the cover of that particular Source that you
Wow. The first one I drew had KRS-One on the cover. So whatever issue was before that one, it might have been Ice Cube. But it had to be an issue from 1990. I can't remember exact. I'd have to look and then I'd be able to tell you. But
Gotcha.
I saw it. It was in black and white. I was in the city. I called the number from the local phone booth at the corner. Um, and turns out they were on 594 Broadway. So I was like a block and a half away. So John Schechter, then editor in chief, said, "Come on by." Came by. They were in one room, uh, small room. As I tell people when they're like amazed, "Yo, you did work for the Source." I was like, "Well, when I started working with the Source wasn't the Source. You know, they had just moved to New York, maybe had been there a good 2 months. Um, what they were paying me for a drawing was $50. So I wasn't doing it because I thought they were going anywhere. I just liked the fact that it was a magazine that when I looked through it was fully hip hop. Um, was melanin all over the damn pages, from the ads to the artists. It was nothing that needed to be explained to me because I was already deep and immersed in the music, knew who was who, and you know, came in, met with him, and he said he always wanted to add some kind of art to the magazine. He said he was a fan of Mad Magazine, so right away we clicked right there on that tip. And you know, Mad Magazine always had the art at the end where you like folded the pages to create something different. And he wanted to create some kind of art at the back, which would be memorable and which would sum up what happened in the issue, right? So he's like, "We're closing the issue. We want to do something with Easy E and the FBI and them clocking him and all that type of thing." He's like, "Would you be able to come up with something?" And I think it might have been Monday or Tuesday. And he asked me if I could come up with something and bring it in for Thursday. And I don't miss deadlines. So I was like, cool. Sketched out the idea that came to me. He approved it. I drew it, brought it in. And, you know, I thought that was it. I wasn't looking for anything else. And then kind of like what happened with Players, the following month, he gave me a call, asked me to come by. I did the next one, and that shit continued for 16 straight years.
Yeah, let's get into